Number 5. In 2015, a 12-year-old boy from Detroit suddenly went missing from his home one evening. Immediately after discovering this, the boy's parents phoned police, at which time officers were sent to the family's residence on 3 separate occasions to collect information and search for the boy. The boy, who can't be named for security reasons, was missing for a total of 11 days, without a single piece of evidence pointing to where he may have been located, or where he may have possibly run to. That is, until police visited the home for a 4th time, conducting one final search for the boy. During this search, an officer noted a large stack of boxes, as well as a large metal drum that had been placed strangely in one corner of the basement. The officer dismantled the stack and found the boy, alive and well, hidden behind the boxes. The boy's father was then informed of this discovery on live television. Have a look.
With me is his father, Charlie Bothell. Charlie, we're getting reports that your son has been found in your basement. Sir? Mr. Bothell, are you...
What?
Yeah, we are getting reports that your son has been found alive in your basement.
What?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I checked my basement, the FBI checked my basement, the Detroit police checked my basement, my wife checked my basement.
At this point, the prime suspects were naturally the boy's parents. The boy was eventually questioned by police, at which time he informed them that his father would physically abuse him with a PVC pipe and psychologically abuse him regularly, often waking him up before dawn to perform unusually intense physical exercises. Though it's unknown exactly how the boy could have been put through all of this abuse or hidden in the basement all of this time, without having been found by the FBI, police, or canine search units. Regardless, the boy's father and stepmother both eventually pled guilty to torture and felony child abuse, though the torture charges were eventually dropped and the child abuse was greatly lessened, with only the father receiving 18 months of probation. He was also ordered to no longer have contact with his son. Thankfully, the boy was safely returned to the care of his biological mother, where he's expected to remain until he's 18. Number 4. In October of 2017, police reported that they uncovered the whereabouts of a woman who'd been missing for 42 years. The woman, named Flora Stevens, is now 78 years old, though she went missing back in 1975 after being dropped off at a doctor's appointment by her husband in New York. Police state that they found the woman after they had begun work on a cold case regarding her disappearance. The woman was found to have been living in an assisted care facility, but currently suffers from dementia, leaving police officers with no way to ask her where she's been for the last 42 years, or how she went missing in the first place. According to the local sheriff, he found the woman after searching through a DNA database, following reports of skeletal remains of a woman that had been found. He stated that he came across the DNA results of a woman named Flora Harris, whom he found had actually matched the DNA test results of the missing woman, Flora Stevens. According to public record, Flora had been living in numerous assisted living facilities over the years, before she ultimately settled down in her current facility back in 2001. Sadly, she has no living relatives and her husband passed away in 1985, though police are still thankful to have finally found the woman after all of these years. Number 3. 19 years after a 5-year-old boy from Indiana went missing, detectives almost miraculously found him, alive and well, in a small town of Long Prairie, Minnesota. The boy, who is now 24, was found to have been married and living with his wife, though he had no idea that his mother had been looking for him all of this time. After hearing the news of her son, the mother stated it's such a relief that he's been found and that he's alive and healthy. I found this out 2 days ago and I'm so excited. I'm pretty happy. I know he's married and he has a child on the way, and I've seen pictures of him. He looks like a man. I last saw him when he was a boy. He just looks so different. Prior to the boy going missing, he'd been stuck in a custody battle between his mother and his grandparents. The mother was apparently in the midst of a divorce and eventually ended up in a homeless shelter. After hearing this, as well as the possibility that the boy had suffered numerous developmental disabilities, Child Protective Services stepped in and took young Richard from his mother. Though after getting her life back together and becoming married again, the mother wanted to regain custody of her son. The family was then sent through countless court hearings over the following months, before the judge ultimately ordered that the mother could have her son back. After hearing this, the boy and his grandparents were seen at a local bank where they withdrew $5,000, stopped by a local diner for breakfast, then fled town, never to be seen again. After this, police state that they searched for the grandparents yearly, but never received any reports. Eventually, when Richard turned 18, police began to regularly run his social security number through their online database, hoping to find some trace of the boy. This eventually paid off in 2012, when police found that the boy had taken his social security card to a local Long Prairie DMV in order to get a driver's license. Following this, investigators reached out to the police of Long Prairie and asked that they search the area for anyone matching the description of the boy's grandparents. This eventually led them to the home of an elderly couple who confirmed that they were in fact the boy's grandparents, also confirming that they kidnapped the boy following the court's ruling. It isn't believed at this point that any charges will be placed against the boy's grandparents, as all of the abduction charges were eventually dropped back in 2008. Also, Richard says that he has no ill will toward them, claiming that he believes that they did what was necessary in order to keep him safe. Number 2. A California man recently criticized a judge who he says prematurely declared him as deceased. The man was previously named Winston Bright, though he now insists on being called Kwame Sekou. The man used to work as a Verizon associate, was married, and had 3 kids. Though seemingly out of the blue, he disappeared for over 2 decades, leading a judge to rule him as deceased in 2000. Kwame, who's now 65, wrote a letter to the judge in 2014 detailing DNA test results that prove he is the same man who went missing some 20 years ago. In his letter, he requested that the judge look over his case so that he may begin receiving his retirement benefits from Verizon. His wife is currently receiving survivor benefits from the company, who openly offered help to the woman after hearing of Kwame's presumed demise. Kwame claims that over the last 20 years he suffered severe amnesia and adopted his new name while roaming the streets of California, though his supposed wife says that she doesn't buy his story, instead insisting that Kwame simply deserted her and the children in search of a better life, insisting that she had zero contact with his family after he had supposedly disappeared. She believes that this indicates that he was alive and well, keeping in touch with his immediate family, all the while waiting to turn 65 so that he could take over his wife's benefits. She also says that he claims to have remembered every single aspect of his life, except for the time with her and her children. Sadly, there isn't really any additional information available on this story. No one is sure if the man's legal attempts were successful, but if the wife's presumptions are correct, let's hope his plans fell through. Number 1. For over 30 years, a man named Edgar La Tulip was completely gone. He didn't remember his own name or the fact that he was living just 80 miles away from his previous home. No one had seen him since September of 1986, when he had apparently disappeared from a Canadian group home, boarded a bus, and forgotten every aspect of his life. He took on a new identity, moved to a new city, and began a new life. However, a recent series of memories has steadily led La Tulip back into the arms of the family which he left behind. Police announced back in 2016 that La Tulip had been found living just a couple cities away from his childhood home. But the strangest part is that La Tulip actually solved his own case. When La Tulip went missing, doctors had determined that he was severely developmentally delayed. In fact, his own mother stated that even when he was 21 at the time of his disappearance, he only had the mental capabilities of a small child. The last time she saw him, he was in a local hospital, recovering from what was believed to have been an attempt at taking his own life. Following this, police believe that La Tulip gradually yet quickly began to lose his memories, most of which never returned until February of 2016. Unsure of what these memories meant, Edgar informed his social worker of the flashbacks, who then connected him to a missing persons case from some 30 years ago. Up until this point, Edgar had been living on disability checks in a group home located near Kitchener. During interviews with local press, Edgar's mother expressed her belief that her son had been killed years ago and buried miles away, though she added the thought that he may have still been alive was always at the back of her mind. After this news, police say that Edgar will be moving back into the home of his mother, leaving his life and friends behind in hopes of a better life. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.